invite you to stand, join me in the pledge, and then Aaron Huntley will bring the invocation.
Father, we thank you for this day. We ask you to bless all those that are here. Give us wisdom. Help us do the right thing. And move forward exactly as you have us. In Jesus' name.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, it has been requested that I remind everyone to be sure you're holding your button down when you speak tonight. So, honestly, I noticed at last committee meeting, I talked a lot without holding the button down, so I needed the reminder too, but somebody, and it wasn't my wife that reminded me either, so, yeah. All right, well, I want to welcome you again to tonight's regular meeting of the Springdale City Council. This is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, and to start things off, I will ask our city clerk, Saber Jeffus, to call the roll.
Mayor Sprouse?
Here.
Brian Powell?
Here.
Amelia Taldo?
Here.
Jeff Watson?
Here.
Mike Overton?
Here.
Mike Lawson?
Here.
Aaron Huntley?
Here.
Randall Harriman?
Here.
Mark Fujirus?
Here.
Ernest Kate?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Saber. Full house tonight. Comments from citizens. This is we're at item 4 on the agenda. This is the portion of the agenda that the council sets aside each regular meeting to hear comments from our citizens. If there's anyone in the room that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda, please come to the podium, clearly state your name and address, and we ask that you keep your comments brief and understand the council won't be taking action tonight on what you bring forward. Is there anyone that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 5, approval of minutes. Council, you've had access to those. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to look those over. If there are no changes or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve them as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. And item 6, I'll turn over to our city attorney, Ernest Kate, for a public hearing.
Thank you. I think we can probably do items 6 and 7 together. Item number 15 on the agenda tonight is an ordinance vacating a portion of a public street, a portion of East Randall Walby Lane. And then item number 16 is an ordinance on a petition to abandon a storm drainage easement on property located off Cheyenne Trail. The state statute requires before the council takes action on the ordinance that a public hearing be held. City clerk has published notice of the public hearing as required by the statute. Is there anybody here that wishes to comment on either one of those items? If not, we'll close the public hearing. We'll take those up as items 15 and 16.
All right, thank you, Ernest. Item 8, procedural motions. What's your pleasure, council?
Move for A and B.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for A and B. And we'll call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, great, thank you. And that brings us to item 9, and our Springdale Chamber of Commerce quarterly report. Jay is here and ready. Jay, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, leaders, and guests. Here are highlights from the fourth quarter of last year. In 2024, the Chamber supported more than 20 large-scale projects in Springdale. With nearly 1,800 new jobs created during the year, the Chamber was involved in over 700 of these new jobs. Of those 700, we partnered with AEDC and Little Rock on 3/4 of them to utilize state incentive resources. Next, following Cargill's recent announcement to close their facility this summer, the Chamber has already connected the state rapid response team with Cargill for assistance. We have a meeting with Cargill this week to discuss both short and long-term support for this longtime Springdale community partner. It's worth noting that we will remain in lockstep with Cargill for their employees, for workforce upskill opportunities, for industry partners, and in fielding prospects expressing interest in the property when the time is right. The city ended 2024 with a 2.5% unemployment rate and still tied for the second lowest in the state. In December 2024, sales tax receipts totaled almost $2.1 million, an increase of 6.9% over December of last year. Total receipts for the year were up 4.3%, totaling more than $24 million. In 2024, total construction permits were 208 commercial, 853 residential. As a comparison to 2023, the commercial permits more than tripled and residential permits more than doubled the year prior. Over the last few months, the Chamber has partnered with Springdale, the Chamber has partnered with Springdale School District on the third annual Draft Day, which is going to be on March 13th, and Career and Technical Signing Day, which will be on May 1st. Both of these events are designed to support our graduating high school seniors entering the workforce and our industry partners. Moving on to page 2, Via Emma, a mixed-use development, will break ground on Thursday afternoon. Additionally, we're expecting another significant job announcement this Thursday. The Hilton Tapestry Hotel on Emma is targeting groundbreaking next month. Onyx Coffee hung their new sign last week in downtown and has plans to open in this first quarter. Market Center of the Ozarks has plans for a grand opening this spring. At the Kendrick Industrial Park, Central States Manufacturing will begin metal frame fabrication this summer, and as a reminder, they're going to add up to 140 new jobs once at full capacity. Premium Brands in Northwest Arkansas will open this summer, and they'll bring 100 new jobs. On the west side of town, Teslar Software's new headquarters continues construction on Gene George. Big Dill Pickleball announced their new facility on Emma. This is east of the new Emma overpass, and we're expecting a groundbreaking this spring with opening in 2026. If any of your questions, this concludes my brief.
Hope y'all can join us on Thursday, both events. Jay, I'm assuming the council gets all your
Invites, yes, sir.
invites, so, yeah.
Yes, sir.
If, I know it'll be short notice on this one, but they're holding it pretty close to the vest, but
Yes, sir.
it'll be a great day. And also, of course, Thursday afternoon at 4
Yes, sir.
at VM. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. All right, item 10, Planning Commission report and recommendations. Patsy Christie, Director of Planning and Community Development. Patsy?
The first item is for a rezoning that was previously approved by the council with ordinance number 6046. When we went to put it on the map, we discovered that it had a scrivener's error in the legal description, which actually flipped it over. So this is an ordinance to correct that scrivener's error. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 6046, which rezones certain lands from agricultural district A1 to low, medium density, single-family residential district SF2 and declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance pass.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any questions or comments? Anyone in the audience? Okay, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Emergency clause will be adopted.
Second.
Okay, call for the vote on the emergency clause.
Carries 8-0.
All right,
The next item is a request to rezone 20.1 acres located west of Butterfield Coach and south of Brushwood Avenue. The request is to rezone the property from A1 to SF3. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain land located west of Butterfield Coach Road and south of Brushwood Avenue from agricultural district A1 to medium density, single-family residential district SF2 within Springdale, Arkansas, and declaring an emergency.
I have questions. So, looking at this, SF2 is all around it. Is there any SF3 close?
I don't believe so. Most of that around was SF2. SF3 is just a 60-foot lot as opposed to a 70-foot lot. They are retaining much of this area in open space so that they can meet the diagonal requirements for fire fire access because it's a pretty limited site. So we're not really getting a much higher density, we're just getting some smaller lots in that portion of it.
We approved that SF3 on the other side of Don Tyson.
Yeah, that's the one we've just recently approved. And there's some at the corner of George Anderson, on the other side of George Anderson on that side too, so.
But there's no SF3 in this area.
Not in this general area, no. Those all subdivisions have been done for several, many years.
Was
That
it,
was some that Terminella started, or not, was it Terminella that started those years and years ago?
Yes, Combs.
Yeah.
was it ever discussed about this being an SF2 or an SF3?
They proposed an SF3, no one, planning commission didn't have any problem with them going to an SF3.
Any,
The concerns we had from adjacent property owners were about drainage and access, which is usually what we have, and the drainage and the access has been taken care of. They have cardinal connections in the directions that they can make those connections to.
Was it unanimous from?
I believe so,
Commissioner?
yes.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Motion and second to adopt the ordinance. Other questions or comments? Does anyone in the audience need to speak to this? All right, we'll call for the vote.
Carries 6-2.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Okay, call for the vote on the emergency clause.
Carries 8-0.
And the emergency clause is included because their action pending on this. The next item on the agenda is,
Patsy, before you move on to the next item, I wonder maybe if at one of our committee meetings, we might have some general discussion. I mean, I know that's a planning commission to take a look at those zonings and everything, but I know Brian, he seemed to have some hesitation there, and I did as well, and maybe some others, but I can't remember the last time we had any just general discussion on density on residential zoning. So I don't know, Mayor, I'd just kind of like to have some discussion.
I think that's
about
fine.
you tell me when you want to do it, and we can have that
I think it would
discussion.
give some more comfort because in my mind, there's not much difference between SF2 and SF3. It's single family, it's small, but it is smaller lots. And sometimes, I know we turned down an SF3 a few weeks ago. And
We
I
did.
think we're seeing them tonight, right? That's not coming back yet?
No, they submitted a revised plat to do it at SF2.
Yeah, I knew they were moving to
Yeah,
SF2, but,
it's already, the preliminary
Okay.
plat was already been looked at.
okay.
The preliminary plat doesn't come to you guys.
So could we just
That's right.
put that on the next committee
Yeah,
meeting somehow?
I think that'd be fine. We may have a fairly lengthy
Yeah.
meeting, but we'll put it on as a discussion item and just talk about the real differences and what,
Would a
Okay.
summary of all the different zoning classifications and what is allowed in each and the lot sizes help? Okay, we can put that together so you'll have that information to look at.
okay.
Yeah. And I can tell you, in a couple of months, we will come through with some proposals for some changes based on the form-based code after we hear the study and based on some ways we need to look at other things to being developed in town too. So we can talk about that. We can get that discussion started and kind of have a review of where we are in the lot sizes. Okay?
Thanks. The overall general discussion, and we talked about this in the State of the City address last year, which I got another one coming up. I'll try not to talk about the same thing. But the overall general discussion in Northwest Arkansas, and something that we've got to be mindful of, is we've got to continue to encourage more density. And we can do it the right way, and I know everybody will want to do it the right way with the right protections, but we've got we've got to do it if we're going to continue to grow.
Yeah, and
because we
land
can't.
cost and utility cost
Yeah.
is part of what's driving the size of the lots. I mean, it's getting tougher all the time. And I tell everybody, we've already done the easy pieces. Well, we have already done the easy pieces to develop. We're working on the infill projects, the areas that don't have necessarily all the utilities extended to it, doesn't have all the road extensions and stuff that needs to be done. So we're at a challenging time, not just in Springdale, but all over Northwest Arkansas.
Anyway, that'd be a good discussion to have, Jeff, I think. Go ahead, Patsy.
The next item is the ordinance that you guys talked about at the last meeting after the appeal of the MFP zone to look at creating a use unit 30 as a permitted use in a C2 zone. Planning Commission held the public hearing on the ordinance itself, and there wasn't a lot of discussion. But there are some concerns, I think, from the Planning Commission, and I can say from a staff point too. The supplemental standards that we have for an RV park hasn't been updated since I've been here, and that's 28 years, and they're pretty sketchy. They don't really address the new era of what RV parks need in order. There's no screening requirements, there's no street width requirements, the site distances are it's just pretty sketchy. And at the time, you all asked about creating your own district, an own district for RV parks, and I wasn't much in favor of that. But the more I look at it, that might be the way to do. You've heard me say several times, whatever you consider to be the worst thing that can happen in a zoning district, if that's okay, then it should be rezoned to that. If we add that to SF2 zone, then we got to consider that as it could go in any place in the city that's already zoned SF2. If that's the decision we want to make, then we're good. But I think we need to think about that before we rush into this too quickly. For one thing, we need to look at the design or the standards for that, and then we need to decide which way we want to go with this.
I'm confused. Why are you talking about SF2?
I'm sorry, C2. I got stuck on, you asked me too many questions about SF2, and I didn't make that connection to C2. It's C2. The ordinance says as a use unit 30 in a C2, which is a general commercial district. I want to show you, we put,
But Patsy, wasn't it the worst-case scenario that was bothering us the last time we considered this? Because before, they were looking at C5 or what?
no, they
home
wanted to go
park.
in a mobile home park.
Yeah, so again, worst-case scenario, that's
In
what
an
they were looking at.
MHP, in an MHP district, it's a permitted use. That's the only place it's permitted. It's a conditional use in an A1 zone. If you look at all that area that's on there that's purple, that's all those areas that an RV park could go in if it is a permitted use in a C2 zone.
But if you come up with a new a description of the requirements for a RV park, it wouldn't, that's all that's going to be required, because if we allow
That's
this,
true.
then we could make this contingent on improving the the requirements.
We
for it.
could. We could do that too. We could add it if we take some time and upgrade the supplemental district standards for an RV park. I would feel more comfortable with opening it up into a C2 zone. Because then we know we have the standards of what kind of a setback does it need from a residential district? What kind of buffer? What kind of screening does it? We don't have any lighting requirements. We don't have any street requirements.
So any application under this ordinance then would come before the planning department, and the planning department could defer it until they come up with the new conditions.
Well,
That are approved.
depending on how you approve this, unless you approve this with.
Subject to.
If you approve the ordinance tonight to allow it as a permitted use, I would suggest, and I know we hate the term moratorium, or we put some kind of hold on any new RV parks until we get that other standard established.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be a
If that's
good
the way we
idea.
want to go, I think that's the best way to do it.
I agree. I'd be comfortable with doing it that way. That way the planning department has a chance to review it, and we're including it as a permitted use in C2.
Yeah. I mean, that's okay if that's the way you want to do it, or you table this and we want to do it all at the same time.
How you would handle the pending request would be, that's what's going to have to, I mean,
Yeah.
you could decide on this pending request and then do a moratorium on, I think we discussed maybe Patsy 60 to 90 days.
I need about 90 days to make sure we look through all the aspects. We'll have to have a public hearing on it, take comments on it, and then come back to you with a recommended ordinance. If you want to do it either as a supplemental district or as additional standards for an RV park district itself. You know, we had an issue where we were getting used car lots and car lots on every corner in a C2. And we went back and created a C6 zone for cars, and that, quite honestly, I think that's worked pretty well.
If the council decided this pending request, that the appeal we're hearing, and if you were comfortable with that, but didn't want to, but the concern seemed to be more what you're opening the door to,
But
then
Pat,
you could do a moratorium if you,
We don't like that word, but I don't know what
I
else
wish
to
there was
use in
another
that
word,
place.
but
did the applicants for this pending action, didn't they have their plans that were approved by the planning
No.
department? Oh, they haven't been,
They had a sketch plan that they
Oh,
showed
okay,
us, and
I'm
that's
sorry,
it.
yeah, they-
And as the mayor asked me at the last time, I can't tell you what standard it meets because there were no dimensions. There were nothing on there for me to tell.
basically
Did it work or not?
be approving this one without any of those standards.
Yeah.
Well, so Patsy, is there a difference between permissible use and conditional use?
A permissible use is a use by right. So if it's rezoned to C2, it's not a question of whether or not it can go in. It's whether it meets the minimum standards. If it is a conditional use on appeal, then you look at the whole thing at once and decide where that conditional use is granted. Then that conditional use is granted to that person at that location. And it's not transferable unless it comes back to the planning commission and the city council to change it. Now, there also is a provision in the conditional use that the council could determine to make it a use by right, if you decided that would okay, and that would be a specific case. It doesn't make all of them that way.
So since this is permissible use, you can't really take a look at it and make any other requirements other than what's in the
No,
ordinance?
if you make it a permissible use tonight and don't change the standards, then we have to go by what loose standards there are there now. Which is
Just
not
as a
much.
reminder, right now, this use unit 30 RV park is a conditional use in an A1.
Right.
Which is what the property on appeal is zoned.
Yep.
The issue,
You want to do the conditional
correct.
use?
So right now, we can already put conditions on it. If they violate the conditions, we can take away the conditional use. So they didn't want that uncertainty. That's why they wanted to rezone it. But I just wanted to remind you,
They're wanting to go C2.
I'm all about updating
If
standards.
If we
but-
pass this ordinance, they'd want to go C2.
But I'm all about updating standards, but right now, it's already a conditional use in an A1.
That's the only other place
So it's not
it
going
can
to
go.
stop them from doing what they need to do?
Well, you would have to approve the conditional use,
And the,
which they haven't asked for.
and the
Okay.
appeal you have is whether or not the property gets rezoned to MHP.
That's right.
And the planning commission denied it, then they're asking you to overturn that decision. If you overturn that decision, that means it's zoned MHP and it can go in with the standards we have now. But that's what it takes for what they presented to be moved forward right now.
If we were to change the standards in a C2 to fit this, and they sold that property, if they were grandfathered under the old standards,
Well, the
or if any,
existing,
whoever is in, let's say if there's a mobile home park in existence now, and they sell that,
it transfers because
It
it's a permitted use.
transfers.
Right, right.
if
Now-
it's a C2, it will.
Well,
Or
right
now it
now,
does.
if you adopt this ordinance and you make it a permitted use, then whatever comes in has to meet minimum standards, and that can be sold as many times, and we don't necessarily have to know anything about it. Because you sell a piece of property that's zone C2 and, you know, you move forward. Because it is a permitted use by right.
But this is without those conditions.
Right, with the current conditions that we have, which have not been looked at since I've been here, I can tell you that.
Yeah, either way we go, it would, I mean, I would think we'd want to get standards for RV parks.
I agree.
Whether it's
And mobile
whether it's a
home parks.
standalone category or whether it's a by right in a C2. We
Right.
want those standards.
Right.
The question would be whether, depending on which way the council wants to go with
Right.
this, whether whether we need to do something to protect
Well, how do we get those protections if it's a by right in a C2?
Well,
You
there
have your
are
standards.
Supplemental
district
standards that go with
regulations.
some districts.
You could have standards they'd be required to comply
Yeah.
with.
Which maybe we should have done that.
Well,
Well,
we have,
years ago.
we have some standards now. For example, minimum park area is 1 acre. Each side has to have a minimum of 1,500 square feet, 30 feet in width, building setbacks, side setbacks, service buildings, number of restrooms, all those are in there now, but it probably does need to be updated. But we do have some standards.
Right.
It just hasn't
Those
come up.
standards wouldn't really apply for an RV park, it sounds like.
That's
These are the
exactly what they
standards for
are.
the RV park that we have in the books now. It just has never come up.
It's never been used.
I think people deserve to have mobile home parks and RV parks treated differently.
I agree.
Especially-
We amended the ordinance to allow an RV park as a permitted use in a mobile home park because the existing mobile home parks wanted to add a section for RVs. And it was real easy to do that because they already had all of the stuff they needed in that. So it was easy to make that a permitted use in an A1 zone without having to update the standards. And I know it was done at least once for that, but we didn't have to go over the standards because we had the mobile home park standards. If you want to go with improved or updated standards and give me about 90 days, we can have those ready. Whether or not you want to go ahead and adopt this ordinance and make it a permitted use before we get that done, that's up to you.
We could adopt it, make it subject to the 90-day.
Ernest is shaking his head, that doesn't really
I'd
work
rather
well.
have the standards so you
In
know
place.
what you're putting in place if you make it a permitted use. I'd feel more
But
comfortable
we
with
already
that.
have it as A1, right?
It's a conditional use in an
It's
A1.
conditional use in A1. They just don't want to go that route right
Correct.
now.
Correct.
Right.
And if you're going to wait, would it be better, I mean, do we want to make it, if we're going to wait till the standards anyway, why not just develop a separate use unit?
A separate ordinance, a
separate
separate district.
ordinance,
We could
yeah.
do that too.
Rather
And
than
then it's
having it
not
in a
allowed
C2
in
at all?
any C2 zone, but its own district, and we look at it wherever they want to put it. That can be
I
the
guess
possibility too.
Yeah, the downside of that is if you've got somebody that has a property they want to market in the future, they're better off to be selling it a C2 piece of property than a,
Well, it depends
than
on what you
RV
want to market
park.
it for.
right.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to market it
If
for.
they're going to market it as an RV park,
So,
mark is RV
Patsy,
park.
why are you saying 90 days? Why can we not?
it takes her that long
try-
to come up with
Well,
it.
no,
By the
wait a
time I
second.
get
I'm
the
trying to push
standards-
her a little bit here.
By the
Can
time
we
I
look
get the
at 60
standards
days?
ready, we have a public hearing, we take comments, and then we need to come back after that. I mean, I can draft one pretty quickly.
What would you have, why do you have to have a public hearing? What,
Because it's amendment to the zoning ordinance, and you have to have a public hearing to amend the zoning ordinance.
did we have a public hearing on this?
We sure did.
Yes.
We always do. And so you couldn't change the standards at all without a public hearing. So that gives me, the notice for the amendment has to be in the newspaper next Sunday, which means it's got to be drafted before then, and I guarantee you it can't be done in 4 days. So that puts us off a month, and then by the time we have the public hearing and take comments, we're close to 90 days. I mean, I'll make it as quickly as possible, but we need to make sure we do it right rather than quick.
I would like to make a motion to table this ordinance to, I don't know what meeting, what day.
Could you table it to
Yeah.
request that the supplemental district update be included in the same ordinance and be right back when all that's ready?
Yes, what she said.
Yep.
So I got a question. Did I hear you say that the city does not have a current RV park?
We have current RV parks, but there is not an ordinance, there's not been a new one approved since I came to work for the city.
But every mobile home park that we have existing in Springdale is coded as a mobile home park?
Right.
So they have, majority of them have RVs in them. Is that
Not a
allowed?
majority of them. I don't think the one on Shady Grove Road has RVs in it. Whistler has some because we amended the ordinance for them. And I don't know if the one on Powell Street does or not, but I know the one on Whistler is the one that we amended the ordinance to allow them to put in an RV section. And in that case, it doesn't say, can they be permanent or are they temporary? Because some of those over there have been there quite some time.
Patsy, Mark, pardon the interruption. The guys in the booth, I don't know if y'all can affect this or not, but I'm getting messages that the sound is really cutting out badly on our live feed. So if there's anything you can do with that, I know some folks would appreciate it.
Standing by the mic.
Thanks.
Standing by the mic.
Mark, to your question, the district regulations that we have now do provide for it to be temporary, no permanent external appurtenances. In other words, they can't put decks on them, porches on them.
So it can be a permanent temporary.
No, it's saying it cannot have any permanent external appurtenances, and they're designed to be for temporary habitation. Whereas you could-
Timeframe.
You could pick up and move easily if you wanted to. That's why it's called a RV, not a mobile home park, not a, yes.
So you don't build permanent around it, but you can stay there forever.
There's no restrictions on how long it can be there, as long as it is
Be tough
no
to
permanent
police.
external appurtenances is what it says.
And that may be something we need to discuss. What is temporary? Can it be there 3 months? Can it be there 6 months? Can it be there 14 days? I mean, there's a lot of questions to be answered of how we want to handle some of these.
Can an RV be lived in permanent to non-permanent on an SF2
No.
or multifamily?
Nope,
No,
So do we enforce that when it's happening?
when we know
I
about
believe
it.
so. I know of a couple of occasions when it's happened, yeah.
Okay.
It's just you might get into family coming for a day or two and, yeah, Cousin Eddie, yeah.
And the family doesn't leave.
No, that's tough to, the time limit deal, I'm just guessing here, I think it's gonna be pretty difficult. But we can
We got to start
Put
somewhere.
it in there. We can put it in there.
We got to start somewhere.
But you've got people who come here, you've got traveling, you've got contractors, you've got nurses, you've got people that come here for varied,
Yeah,
they're not here permanently, but
Yeah.
whether it's 6 months or 3 months,
Yeah.
it'd be hard to.
well, and quite honestly, if it's 3 months, you pull the RV out, you drive it around the block, and you come back and park it in there.
Hey,
And so-
Ernest, did I hear some hesitation to Amelia's motion? Because she made a motion.
I'll second it.
Was there some hesitation?
Now we have a second. My understanding is the motion to table would be to table this ordinance until the supplementary district regulations are brought back for consideration. But we
With
don't know
this
exactly
ordinance.
when that's going to be.
But you can table indefinitely, so,
Yeah.
so that's basically what this is doing.
But I think we need to give Patsy some direction on when we want that done.
Well, I heard 90 days. I've been
Nobody
working
gives
on it.
Patsy direction.
I think we can get it done in 90 days.
Okay.
I really think we can.
So
Now,
that's-
somebody's going to have to tell us what is 3 months, 6 months. I mean, we'll give a stab at it, and y'all have to decide if that's what you want or not, you know?
I'm not,
I know, like the one in Cave Springs, they make them move every so often.
Yeah.
Like you gotta, that's the mobile, I don't know if that's the city making them do that, but
maybe we
the
could
place
look
where
at,
it's at.
maybe, hey,
Bella
they're
Vista has the
successful, maybe
same
we could
kind
look
of
at some
thing. I
rules.
looked at theirs. I started looking at some of the others around
Yeah.
to see what they have. Yeah.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Everybody clear on the motion and the second? Postponing or tabling indefinitely, basically, but with the intention of coming up with some standards within 90 days, in the next 90 days. All right, anybody in the audience need to speak to this? All right, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right. Thank you. Item 12, Finance Committee and Chairman Jeff Watson. Jeff, what do we got?
We got 11.
Oh, we got an 11? Oh,
MHP.
He may want to be informed, though, of what the discussion was before we,
So, is there anyone here for the appeal of the denial of the rezoning for R 2458? Mr. Gibson was here, I believe, at the January 14th meeting. He knew it was tabled to this meeting. Is there anyone here on behalf of the property owner who appealed? Because if they're not here, I would say the appeal is withdrawn and the rezoning denial is upheld.
That's all the question was, whether it's MHP or not. That was.
Right, right. So if there's no one here, I'd say they've abandoned their appeal. If there's no one here. I mean, there's nobody here. I'm a little surprised because they knew it was being tabled to tonight. But they're not here.
Okay.
On my one question on this is, there is that option to give them the conditional use and give it to where it's indefinite forever, or till, if they sold it, it would stay with the property.
Well, no, it's limited to the applicant, and they would have to petition separately if they wanted to do a conditional use in the current A1 zoning. They would have to go, they'd have to file a petition, have to go to planning commission, and then it would come to the council if they wanted to do that. My understanding is the part that's being operated now is grandfathered. It was brought into the city, so they can't expand it, but we can't make them stop unless they stop for more than 6 months.
Okay. I guess we'll move on then. No action to take there. Now we're at item 12, Finance Committee, Jeff Watson.
Finance Committee forwarded 3 items to council, all 3 of them with recommendation for approval. The first item has to do with the utilization of federal aid funds, and Ben's going to address that, but I'll go ahead and read the title to that resolution. It's a resolution expressing the willingness of the city of Springdale to utilize federal aid funds for the following project: Apple Blossom Avenue improvements.
Move the resolution pass.
I do want to make one correction to what we talked about at committee. You asked the question, what we in for, and I said 1/3 of 700,000. The design estimate is $4 million. We're getting 2.8 in federal aid funds. We're on the hook for 400,000. Lowell is in for 400,000, and JB Hunt Corporate is in for 400,000. So we're at 400,000, not 234. But that's in line with the resolution that we passed when we applied.
And that was the percentage that we agreed to with, in terms of the grant.
Correct.
Motion stand? Okay. We have a second. Any other discussion or comments? All right, let's call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
The second item from the Finance Committee has to do with he entered into agreement for the construction pad at the Rabbit Foot Lodge. That item, that contract is for $25,154. James Smith will address that, but I'll read the title. A resolution entering into an agreement for the construction of a greenhouse pad at Rabbit Foot Lodge. Foot, not food, Rabbit Foot Lodge.
They're going to process rabbits there?
Sounds good.
James, when we met on this, did you say that this amount came in under what it was originally?
Yes, half price.
With the resolution passed.
Second.
Got a motion, a second to approve the resolution. Other comments or questions? Anyone else in the audience? All right, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0 with changing it from food to foot in the title of the resolution.
As well as the body.
Is it in the
All the staff needs to remember, just James's example there, Colby, when he got up and said half price, That helped.
Yeah.
Third item from Finance has to do with waiving of competitive bidding for the purchase of 3 vehicles. Colby will address this. I'll read the title. A resolution to waive competitive bidding and authorizing the purchase of various city vehicles.
These vehicles are half price of what they will be in about 5 years. So one of the things I've learned here in a short amount of time is that this buy board that a lot of people go to is not always the best deal. All of the vehicles that I told you about at the last committee meeting, we were able to get because they were below the threshold, $42,920. There's 3 vehicles that I've listed here that are above that dollar amount that we need your approval to waive bidding. According to the state statute, we feel like this is not feasible or practical for us to buy them off the buy board because they're more expensive. So we're saving the city about $14,000 by buying these 3 through negotiated deals instead of the buy board. So that's what we're bringing forward to you tonight.
Are you going to be coming back to us for additional funds to armor your upgraded vehicle among these 3?
No. Not for the planning department.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Anyone? Anyone in the room? All right, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 13, Parks and Recreation Committee, and Randall Harriman, Chairman. Randall?
We're going to open up Parks and Rec. 13A is a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to purchase artificial turf for Walter Turnbow Park and waive competitive bidding, presented by Chad Wolf.
Yeah, as most of y'all know, if you've been down to Shallow Square, there's a little piece of grass just west of Shallow Square, and it stays muddy, and it's really grass doesn't grow there, so we're requesting to put turf there to make it look more presentable and where you don't get your feet wet, dirty during big events.
And just so everybody's more comfortable with it, it's not as green as that overhead shot.
No, but it's almost half off of our highest bid, so. That's it. Yeah,
I wasn't here last week. What is the issue with that area right there? If it stays wet, I mean, is it just lower or what's?
yeah,
And a
You
lot
have
of
that-
foot traffic.
Yeah, you have that flower bed and it goes down to the grate and water just stands there and people come off the concrete and get in the mud and they track mud into the concrete. We have to clean it up. And
Just so y'all know, I don't think I mentioned it, but Chad and I didn't dream this up. I mean, we've had people, DSA, Chamber, we've had other business owners make some of these suggestions, and I thought it was a good idea. I've seen where, I was talking with Jared Cleveland about it and they've got an area in their new, you may have seen it, yeah, kind of a courtyard deal that they turfed and said that it's just so much better used and it looks good. So,
If you walk by right now, there's mud, there's just hard dirt down right next to Shallow Square where there's supposed to be grass, because people walk out straight off to the west and now it's just packed dirt.
Move resolution to pass.
Second.
got a motion, a second to approve. Any other comments or questions?
Real quick, I'm sure we're not using the top of the line turf and we're using the middle of the road, but
It's
like
the-
life expectancy and is it just?
It's an
not cheap
8-year
stuff?
warranty, so anything that happens, the 8-year warranty. And it's also a high grade, it's a playground turf. So they put these in playgrounds where there's a lot of activity, so it doesn't get matted down and stuff.
So how does it handle animal stuff?
Excrements. I don't know. I'll have to ask them. Or I'm sure we'll be cleaning it up.
Yeah.
You guys have to
Hopefully
pick it up
people will
anyway,
pick up
right?
after. Do what?
They'll have to pick it up anyway if it's on grass or on
Yeah,
dirt,
that's
right?
true.
I'm always the one that hates spending money, but if we're doing that area, my concern, is it gonna look compared to having grass? And I know if I say turf more of it, we're spending more money, and I don't like spending money.
Well, this is this is the worst area, and it's kind of like what time, it depends on what time of year it is. You know, if you drive by Luther George Park, not Luther George, I'm sorry, Willie George, in the spring and, you know, before it starts kind of getting brown in the summer and drying out, the color's good.
Yeah.
The color's good between the infield and the outfield. But yeah, right now it sure look different.
I mean, I would consider doing turfing more once we get that part done, if it is a mismatch. I mean,
It'll just depend on the time of year. We don't have the issue and it kind of goes back to Jeff's point about, you know, a lot of Walter Turnbow Park is terraced, you know, but there's a lot of retaining walls and it's flatter and it doesn't get, main thing is it doesn't get nearly the foot traffic that this does between Shallow Square and the Greenway.
Yeah,
this
it
section.
doesn't get matted down, you know, we have concerts there and everything, and, yeah, you can see footprints next day, but after a while, after you mow it and stuff, it comes back and it's green, stays green.
Okay. Any other comments?
and does it have, and I'm ignorant on turf, but does it have those little turf
No.
balls?
No. it
Track all
doesn't.
over your house? No?
Okay. Go ahead, Colby.
Turf will have some kind of what they call infill. It's going to have rubber pellets, if that's what you're asking, the black beads. The only kind that doesn't is the kind that we have at our baseball fields. But these kind will have to have rubber infill pellets.
That's what makes the turf stand up, and it gives the cushion. But the turf was like on our fields, is like I mentioned at committee, it would have been about $90,000.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, 100.
I don't think anybody's going to be playing football on it or anything, so.
Does
Well, your
anybody
kids
know,
might be.
anybody know do those little black pellets wash in heavy rain towards the drain?
They shouldn't. No, they'll get on the concrete where we'll just blow it back off into the turf.
well, we've got the equipment.
Yeah, we have tons of it stored, so,
Yeah, but we have the equipment too
yeah.
to rake that stuff in like it's supposed to
I
every so
I was curious about, I mean, it all drains towards the,
Right.
that's
It
part of
should.
the problem is
Yeah, it
the
should.
runoff there, right? You don't think it'll flow down? I mean, because every place else that we have AstroTurf's pretty level, and this is not.
Right. Well, of course, I haven't seen it. I've seen something that has a incline, so I don't know on that.
Yeah, I know that this is not exactly the same, but I've seen those playgrounds. There's a place in Tulsa that's got the playgrounds with the big humps like we've got out at Shaw.
Yeah,
And I've thought we ought, because we sure can't grow grass on those.
no.
And we ought to look at doing this someday out there on those hills, because these playgrounds had some pretty substantial,
they do.
big hills like that, and they look good on that. Anyway. All right. I'll call for the vote.
Carries 6-2.
All right, 13B is a resolution waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the purchase of fitness equipment for Springdale Parks and Recreation.
Yeah, we had money in our budget, and we're just asking to waive competitive bidding. This was on a buy board from Omnia, and it's the cheapest price we could get.
I'll make a motion that the resolution pass.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions?
This is all new equipment, it looks like? or-
Yeah.
Again, I was going, this is, you said at the rec center?
Yes.
Anything else?
So I've heard you can get it cheaper off the buy board? Some things?
Some things,
Just always, we're learning to always check.
yeah.
Yeah.
We could have went out and tried to, get 3 people and tried to get the cheapest, but I don't think you'd beat that price. Because a lot of that, we're trading in what we have. It's not really worth anything, but they're taking it off our hands.
So these prices reflect the trade-in.
You don't want to haul off weights, or I don't.
All right, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Hey, Chad, tell them about what's coming up at the rec center.
Yeah, we're hosting a wrestling event, middle of March. I call it WWE, but it's not that. It's a lot more tamer. But we're going to be hosting that on a Saturday night at the rec center. There'll be, I don't know how much, $10 to get in, and we won't be open, so everything will be. There won't be any kids or anything in there. And also, midsummer, we're hosting a pageant for abused children, ages 5 to 12. And we're going to make it where we have a runway with, black visqueen and have it a little special day for the abused children. I believe I'd be lying if I told you where it's from, but I said Loving Choices. I'm not sure if that's it or not, but.
Just to add a quick note about the wrestling event, we did discuss this, that we are going to ensure that it is a family-friendly event before we allow them to participate there. So just to let you all, because I know not all events like that are family-friendly, but that will be a stipulation.
Mud involved?
No, we will not do that.
And also,
Yeah,
Shaw
that's right.
Park, if you haven't been by there, the turf's all in. We're just waiting on the curb and guttering and asphalt and the water, and should be, they told me 1st of May, that'll be done.
Parking is done at CL and Willie George, except for some
Sod.
turf, some sod, yeah. All right.
We're
So if
getting
you haven't
close.
been out, check them out.
Yep.
All right.
That's it.
I'll go ahead and read this, item 14. This doesn't have anything to do with wrestling, I don't think, but it's a resolution authorizing the temporary operation of a carnival.
I think we do this every year.
Make a motion, the resolution passed.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other comments or questions? Okay, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, Ernest, I'm going to give 15 and 16 to you, and 17, by the way.
Thank you. Item 15 is an ordinance vacating a portion of a dedicated public street known as Randall Wolby Lane pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated 14-301-301 et sec, declaring an emergency for other purposes. If you look on red page 69, the red area is the portion to be vacated. It's where the street used to go before it was relocated when we did the 265 improvements. This is at the request of the property owner.
Move ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments or questions for anyone? Okay, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0. Does have an emergency clause.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Okay, call for the vote on the emergency clause.
Carries 8-0. Item 16 is an ordinance vacating and abandoning a storm drainage easement pursuant to Arkansas Code annotated 14-301-301 et sec, declared an emergency for other purposes. The easement that's being vacated is on red page 73 in your packet. This is a new subdivision that's gone in. I believe they've relocated the drainage as part of the subdivision, is the reason for the vacating this one.
Move ordinance pass.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the ordinance. Any other questions? Comments, concerns? Anyone? Okay. Call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Call for the vote on the emergency clause.
Carries 8-0. Item 17 is a resolution setting a hearing date on a petition to abandon a portion of a utility easement in the city of Springdale, Washington County, Arkansas. And that would set the public hearing for March 11th, and the city clerk would advertise the public hearing once a week for 2 consecutive weeks per the statute. Happy
Make
to
a
answer any
motion,
questions.
the resolution pass.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the resolution. Other comments or questions? Okay, call for the vote.
Carries 8-0.
All right, item 18, I think we touched on this at committee. For the next committee meeting, next Monday is President's Day, and we discussed moving the committee meeting to Tuesday night. We also Patsy, do you want to say anything about Tuesday night and the Planning Commission work session and how we're going to dovetail that if the council moves the committee meeting to Tuesday?
We have scheduled for H3 Studios to come in and make the final presentation on the Southeast Area Housing Study and the parking study for downtown, to make that presentation to Planning Commission work session, which starts at 5:30. Actually, it starts at 5. So we'll have a quick work session, and then he would be available to make the presentation to both Planning Commission and council at the same time.
We can
So
just
you'll
put that
have-
as the first item on
Right.
the committee agendas.
Right. And he has quite a bit of information to provide, and you'll get copies of his slides, because there's a lot of data and stuff that you can look at, that we've looked at how we've come up with the numbers of what we think the downtown, that area can handle in housing units, and some proposed changes to the form-based code, and how we address the parking problem in downtown, both long-term and short-term, some implementation recommendations to go with that too. Yeah.
Is that okay with everybody? Move it. I know Mark can't be here. Anybody?
We have a
Okay.
planning commission meeting on Tuesday night?
Their work session, their second meeting of the
Where do
month.
they meet?
We usually meet in the community room.
They meet in the community room.
Yeah.
They're gonna meet up here, and then we can kind of double tag team it for our first item at committee, and then we'll move on with, we'll have a pretty, probably a pretty robust committee agenda next week. So, all right, that's all we needed to do. I heard robust, and that's why I used your word. Any comments from council members? City attorney?
No, sir.
Not me either.
So
Okay, we've got a motion to adjourn, and we stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.